Uh, I think coming from an impoverished country and also not from a well-to-do family, I would tell my younger self, who is also a younger, I'll tell my younger self that be bold, believe in
Mm,
your voice, and also believe in your perspective. I do believe that education does not box you. Education will put you in places where you have never been.
mm,
I would also want to advise that education is the equalizer. Of course, while the world may not be equal, but it is an equalizer in the sense that you find yourself tapping into the things that you never imagined you would tap into.
mm.
That's, I think, number one. Number two, now I'm talking to my someone in their 30s. I am a trained agricultural scientist. Did my PhD in plant pathology, molecular work, and all that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl Anne with a me. If you're new here, welcome to the show. And if you're a regular listener, welcome back. It's always so good to have the listeners return. Remember to share, disseminate this episode so that somebody else is informed on this wonderful conversation that we're having. If you're listening on YouTube, or wherever else you're listening to your podcast, please make sure to hit the subscribe button. As some of you are aware, we are running the Innovation and Farming series for the next couple of months on this podcast. And we are so excited to be having such rich conversations with various actors who are involved in farming and innovation. Today, we are back for episode 2, and I'm really, really excited to delve into this topic. So, participatory farmer research is crucial for transforming African agriculture by ensuring that research directly addresses the needs and constraints of local farmers. This leads to more relevant and adaptable solutions that are readily adopted, while integrating policies that can further amplify the impact by creating supportive environment for farmer participation and the implementation of locally developed innovations across the agriculture sector. Today, I'm happy that I'll be joined by Dr. Rachel Mkandawire, who's from Malawi, and she works along these lines. Dr. Rachel is an agriculture expert in policy with over 15 years of experience in the food security and climate adaptation. She works across Southern Africa, advocating for climate smart strategies to build resilient food systems. She will share her career journey, the importance of participatory farmer research, and how integrated policies can transform agriculture in Africa. Let's tune in to listen to all of this and, of course, so much more. Let's go. Hello, Dr. Rachel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you
It's
so much for having me.
it's honestly such a pleasure to have you on. We've already heard your very impressive bio. So, for the purpose of our listeners, may you kindly introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure that we connected, and I have to share what I'm currently doing and where we're coming from. I think I came to know about your podcast through Kay Kumbuzile Bopela,
Yeah,
Dr. Bopela. Yeah, we were
yeah.
together at P. So to kickstart about myself, I am Rachel Isabel Mkandawire. I am a Malawian.
Mm,
I actually came to South Africa for studies, to study for a PhD. I
okay.
am a plant scientist. I have a bachelor's degree in crop science, in a bachelor's degree in agriculture with a major in crop science. I
Mm-hmm.
have a master's degree in plant nematology from University of Ghent, Belgium. And I also have a PhD in plant pathology from the University of Pretoria. That's where I met Kay.
Mm,
Uh, Before joining my PhD, I worked with various organizations. I have worked for the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, IITA, as a agronomy consultant. I have also worked as an agronomist with the Agriculture Research Extension Trust. This is a research institute that is responsible for all the tobacco research in Malawi. I have also worked with the private sector. I worked as an agronomy manager for the Premium Tobacco Limited in Malawi, also known as Premium Tama. In a nutshell, I've also been involved in a number of consultancies. I've consulted in climate agriculture, I've consulted in food security, I've consulted under FAO, under various organizations, but mainly linked to agriculture, food security, food systems, just to mention a few. To talk about what I'm doing now after my PhD, while I was doing my PhD, I applied for work as an intern at FANRPAN, Food Agriculture and Natural Resources Policy Analysis Network. It started as it's kind of like interesting because the way I started, I just wanted to abreast myself with what was happening within the agriculture spectra, since PhD kind of took me away for 6 years from the mainstream agriculture. And they took me on as an intern. So I was just pitching in whatever I could within the week, within my PhD schedule. Sometimes it would be even in taking minutes and all that. And then I end up liking what I do. So FANRPAN works in agriculture policy research. We are an institution, a Pan-African. We pride ourselves as a Pan-African institution. That was mainly established. That was established in 1993 by a core of ministers within the African region to have a policy think tank in Africa that represents the interest of African agriculture and the interest of African nations. So that's how FANRPAN was formed. Mainly, it was to look at East and Southern Africa, but under AU, we currently have the mandate to do policy research for the whole continent.
Okay.
Yeah. So we supply evidence-based information to inform policy processes, but we also use policy to help come up with strategies, solutions, science that is backed by already existing policies. Or we also help to analyze the current policy and try to find gaps and find where we need to fill the gap in order for implementation to really, really take place seamlessly. I think in a nutshell, that's what we do.
This is so fascinating. Thank you so much for that overview so that we can understand where you've come from to exactly where you are. So from my understanding, in policy, you work with a lot of various different stakeholders, not only at a national level, but very much internationally, would you say?
Yes, we have a wide range of stakeholders. We work from the local level, that is the village, to the international, where we represent Africa's interests at the regional and global level. We help to feed policy processes at African Union, mainly at SADC region and African Union. And also sometimes we participate at global policy events. For example, we use our policy research results to inform processes at the COP. You understand the climate COP, where we share what the African nations want based on the research that we are currently doing. Yeah, we also have projects that are at regional levels. I think most of the current project that South Africa has, our institution has now, are mainly at regional level. I don't know if you would want me to elaborate on some of the work that I'm doing that are linked at regional level. Okay, so
Yes. So there's one that I would like you to maybe let's start there. There's one
okay,
that maybe we can start talking about. The one is the food systems and transformation for One Health project. That's one of the projects that you've been involved in. So can you maybe tell us about that project first, and then I have a follow-up question after that.
okay. So the food systems transformation in Southern Africa for One Health, in short, Foster Health, it's being implemented in 4 countries:
Mhm.
Malawi, South Africa, Tanzania, and Zambia. Mainly, it's funded under the European Union. We have 3 main leads in Africa. FANRPAN is like the African, the lead organization.
Okay.
But we also have the research, the institutions that are responsible for research, that is University of Leeds and University of Wageningen. The role of FANRPAN within this project is mainly for to influence stakeholder engagement, but also to help influence policy processes at the national and also at the regional level. So in this project, we are mainly trying to find, it's a research-based project in which we're trying to find plausible pathways in which governments should do follow in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years to have a transformed, a sustainably transformed future that is
Mhm.
also linked to One Health. So as you remember, in 2020, the world was on its knees and was shocked by the coming of COVID. But
Yeah.
from a science point of view, you find that uh, some of the reasons alleged to have caused COVID is like overpopulation, climate change. People moved into areas that were not mainly supposed to be habitable. And then the human wildlife interface came
Mhm.
in that carried COVID bats. And then you have the human contact. So the bats evolved well with the COVID virus, but not the humans. So in humans, it causes diseases. And that has been I think, probably the evolution of most of the One Health projects that are currently happening. To really, if you are trying to transform food systems, we not only need to look at the food itself, but we also need to look at the One Health part of it. So, for example, in South Africa, we are looking at too many dimensions. We are looking at human health, but also trade.
Mhm.
So while we are trying to increase food security, livestock production in terms of livestock, consequently improve the nutrition from meat consumption, but we are also looking at zoonotic diseases that may come from animals to humans, or animal diseases that may threaten trade and then later on affect nutrition of the livelihoods. So
Mhm.
that's what this project is mainly looking at the interlinkages of food systems, food production, trade, and how that translates into diseases. To what extent can these influence diseases? So we have different elements within the 4 countries. As I said, for South Africa, we are focusing on the trade, livestock, biosecurity, trade, livestock, and the nutrition. In Zambia, it's also the same. But in Zambia, there is also an element of diversification from maize-based systems into legumes.
Mm.
You know that most of our maize within the region, we are maize dependent, but we are also suffering from malnutrition, stuntedness, and all that. So if we diversify nutrition, we are not only diversifying economically for the farmers, we are also diversifying nutritionally for the young children, for the women, for everybody.
Mm.
In Malawi, we're focusing on diversification of maize-based system and nutrition as well, but also we are looking at land acquisition and land allocation. So if you really look within the region, in terms of land holding capacity, Malawi has the lowest, and then, but they still need to feed a growing population. So apart from really trying to understand how they should diversify, we are also trying to find ways of how can that land maximize. So we're coming up with plausible pathways, trying to come up with models and predict future food systems, what governments should focus on in the next 5, 10, 15, 100 years to come.
That's fantastic work. That's really fantastic work. And it's quite interesting that it is region dependent, that although it's one major goal, but because of what the specific region needs, the objectives are centered around that. So
tailor-made to respond
precisely.
to.
Yes, precisely. So with that being put into place, for example, in this particular project, what is the vision? How does this then impact food security and health in this particular regions?
Okay, so we are hoping that if we come up with models or future food systems determinators coming out of these projects, I also forget that Tanzania is part of that. Tanzania is focusing on diversification and also trade. But in Tanzania, we have looked at horticulture and fruits, but also spices. Mainly for spices are considered like a woman's crop. Yeah. So back to your question, we are hoping that at the end of the project, we are going to have pathways in which governments can take or can follow, or in which policy institutions or policy advocacy institutions can help to advocate for. That you see, this is the research that these institutions, this Pan-African institution did. And this is what we need to do. What is preventing us to follow this? So in terms of now food security system, for example, for Tanzania, Tanzania is just getting into the horticulture in the international horticulture industry market. But South Africa has a well-developed structured horticulture that sells internationally and everything. So we also want to mimic what can these other countries learn from South Africa. But also, how can we make these learnings lead more towards these specific countries? We can't take South Africa's approach, as holistic as it may not, really fit the exact Tanzanian situation or exact Zambian situation. But the collaboration within the region is also kind of like a cross-learning linkage to really understand, to really help, to really learn from each other on how best we can advance food security. Just to go back a little bit about, I just shared what FANRPAN does, but we also have one of the most powerful convening platforms within the region. So we engage at national and regional levels on issues of food security, food systems, One Health, and all that, or depending on the themes that we are looking at. And these platforms are the ones also that feed government into the research outputs that will come out of. We also produce policy briefs, like something that is not heavy academic. We also do publishing and all that, but we are looking at policy briefs that someone can just quickly look, maybe go back to references to really understand better, but something that is informative that can quickly inform policy on what needs to be done. Yeah. So we have those platforms to enhance learning and all that within the system.
That's very impressive. That's very impressive. I want us to maybe now talk to, because you've spoken to us of how you interact at national level with governments and other policies and researchers. I want to now talk about the farmers, the people who are on the ground, who are implementing some of these strategies that you've laid out. So how do you ensure that the farmers are actually actively involved in shaping these policies that will ultimately affect them?
Okay, so we work in 21, we currently are in 21 countries, but in each country we have node networks. So the structure of FANRPAN is that you have the secretariat at the office at South Africa, at Pretoria, in South Africa, as the secretariat. But linked to the secretariat, you have nodal structures, nodes. They are not like branches, but they are part and parcel of the FANRPAN governance structure. So we select these nodes based on how well they interact with the people on the ground, how well vested they are in the area that we do, how connected they are to national policies, how connected they are to the local people. So we are not just looking at institutions that are office-based. We work with institutions that are grassroots, that really work with the people. So when we are trying to come up with policies, they come from the grassroots with the information that comes from the nodal structure based on the work that the nodes do. So it's usually FANRPAN, nodes, and then the farmers. But the node can also interact with other stakeholders, the universities, Ministry of Agriculture, the private sector, and everybody. We know that at the end of the day, who we really want to improve is the livelihood of the farmer, but the farmer does not work in isolation. You need the private sector to invest in transport and logistics to transport the produce. You need government to provide a conducive environment for everything. You need the university, the academia, or the research institutions to produce the research that responds to the farmer's needs. So you have FANRPAN here, you have the node, you have now the different stakeholders that we work with.
Wow, so it's a really multi-layer structure.
Multi-layered structure that,
Okay. No, and speaking of that, let's talk about some of the challenges that comes in working in this type of environment, because I think theoretically it sounds very amazing, and it is amazing that everybody gets to have an input. So could you share some of the challenges that might arise in working in a system like that, and how do you navigate those?
I think the current number one challenge that is the elephant in the room is the funding.
Yes.
Funding. Yeah. I think that one is the primary. So, now the Trumps have taken their monies, but you have a region that had so many projects that were USAID funded. And some of the projects that were funded at node level by these people. And these projects were the ones also sometimes that was connecting FANRPAN to the farmer. So if this money is away, it means that there is a gap between FANRPAN and the farmer. It's just FANRPAN and the node. You understand? So funding is one of the main issues. It's not just about reach, but to do the actual work, to do the policy research, to do the actual stakeholder engagement it actually requires money. I am here in Dar es Salaam for a stakeholder engagement, for a joint sector review for the East and Southern African community. Imagine if this organization relied on USAID. It meant this whole joint sector review for what the region needs to do for the youth, what the region needs to do for women, what the region needs to do for the digitalization in agriculture wouldn't happen. So the main elephant in the room affecting the region currently is funding. The funding is not only from the USAID. The USAID is just an example. But from our government itself. So some of this work, it should be championed by government, but governments also sometimes have their own priorities. And we need to keep advocating. We need to keep saying in the room on agriculture investments that are based on evidence, that are based on science, or policies that are backed by scientific findings. You just don't wake up one day and say everybody gets subsidy.
Yeah, it needs to
Gets
have the backing.
subsidized by fertilizer. But you are talking about farmers that already have millions. You are not supposed to subsidize those people. You understand? There are some interventions that you can give to them, but not everybody needs a fertilizer intervention.
Mm.
So, like that. Yeah.
Very interesting. So we've spoken on that. What are some of maybe the opportunities that comes for you on a personal level about working in an organization like that? What is something that makes you excited about the work that you do?
Is a lot.
Oh, that's
Mainly
good.
the networking is massive.
Mm,
You meet a lot of people that are working in the air in the space that we are in. The collaborations that come out of these meetings, the research part of it that you have to do, the advocacy work that you have to do to inform governments, inform stakeholders that we need to do this and all that.
mm.
Those are quite really, really quite interesting. Yeah, those are in a nutshell the things that I usually look forward to. The
At least,
networking, the collaboration. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, at least so far, it sounds like the pros outweigh the cons of the work, which is very good.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I also want to just pull that string further on talking about you on a more personal level. You
Mm-hmm.
are a current African Women in Agriculture Research and Development Fellow. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe could you just discuss this recognition briefly? What does it actually mean? And what are some of the opportunities that being a fellow for award has given you?
Um, for me, the award fellowship has really, really been transformative and empowering.
Mm,
The award provides mentorship and leadership skills to women in agricultural research and development. I have always, I think I have, this was my third application, if I
oh, wow.
remember very well. The first one I applied after I just finished my master's. Then the second one I applied when I was doing my PhD, but I was not successful.
Mm,
But looking at the way the women that were mentored under award came out, for most of them, they were very, very impressive. I have not seen one award fellow that is kind of lackluster. Most of them are really, really out there doing things and all that. Like people that are not afraid to command the room, people that are not afraid to, you see the leadership, you
mm,
see the mentorship, you see they make women feel seen. And I
mm,
think a product, maybe it came from them as well as being intelligent, having gone through, but I feel like award also helped to bring out something out of these women. And for a very long time, I wanted that.
mm.
And when I get into award, I realize that it is even more than that. It's
Oh, wow.
not just a recognition, it's an opportunity, it's a platform for growth. We have learned a lot on negotiations, leadership, mentorship, conflict resolution, how to develop a roadmap where you are and how do you see yourself, what do you need to do. We have been linked to incredible mentors in the field. So, and apart from that, it has expanded my network. and also bringing in the gender responsive thinking when we are trying to bring policies, like, for example, I work in policy. If you are a scientist, gender responsive approaches in breeding maybe, or whatever you think of, but as an award, things that would really, really, you have taken a gendered approach in improving the lives of people. So I think it's so far so good. I like it. Yeah.
Impressive. And congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Speaking on just idea and mentorship, I think if somebody is listening to this and is listening to the journey and the amazing work that you've done, many are already inspired by you I think already, like you were saying, that when you looked at the past award fellows, they have a sense of presence and they're able to command a room, and I mean that's already visible with you as well. So clearly,
Oh,
whatever
thank you.
water you guys are drinking in award, it's clearly working so well. So before we wrap up our conversation, which was really quite interesting, I just wanted to ask you, what advice would you give particularly a young woman who is listening to this episode and is particularly inspired by you and the work that you do in the space of agriculture research and policy making?
I think, coming from an impoverished country and also not from a well-to-do family, I would tell my younger self, who is also a younger, I'll tell my younger self that be bold, believe in your voice, and also believe in your perspective. I do believe that education does not box you. Education will put you in places where you have never been. I can also advise, I would also want to advise that education is the equalizer. Of course, while the world may not be equal, but it is an equalizer in the sense that you find yourself tapping into the things that you never imagined you would tap into. That's, I think, number one. Number two, now I'm talking to someone in their 30s. I am a trained agricultural scientist. Did my PhD in plant pathology, molecular work, and all that. You can change careers. You can evolve into something. So don't be afraid. Don't think, I didn't know much about policy, but here I am enjoying it.
Yeah.
So maybe if you don't like what you are doing, maybe as a scientist, like I'm also a scientist, but now I'm looking at the angle in which you want to influence your science on. You can change. If there is room, you can do that. I did that and I am very happy. Thirdly, for PhD students, I think there is this notion of wanting to stay in the academia after attaining a PhD. And then people get frustrated if things don't happen. Like, you find that you have done postdocs for the first, third, fourth, fifth year, and then things are not moving you at the same point. The idea of the PhD is to help you think beyond. It does not mean that you have to be boxed into the academic space. You can apply your knowledge somewhere. Already a PhD is a sign of resilience, is a sign of persistence, is a sign of, arguably only 1% of the population has it. You can apply your knowledge, your persistence, your humility, your resilience into something else if what you wanted to do is not serving you. Not every PhD candidate will get into the academia. Some of us will leave, or some of them will leave. So give yourself room to grow and flourish outside the things that you thought were maybe more important. Yeah, you would find that there is also another world out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I feel like that resonated with me also on a personal level. And I hope for people who are also listening, they do get that sense of being brave to pivot. Because I think sometimes we're so stuck in our ways because of a particular thought that we thought we are meant to be, but we don't have to be there forever. And like you rightfully said, who would have thought plant pathology and policy, they seem very far off removed, but you're
far apart.
yes.
But when you're talking now about, let's say, fertilizers, you you understand it more than the agricultural economist. You understand? You can give more information on the plant physiology. Like, no, the way this works, you just don't need this type of fertilizer. You need this, you need that, And then, for example, you also have people that says, we don't need to use this type. We only need to use organic, blah, blah, blah. But as a scientist, you can also have your own arguments backed by what you know. So policy is about applying your scientific knowledge to help transform change. While a degree in policy is important, but having that scientific understanding is also gives you also a leverage, kind of. So don't be afraid to move. If what you thought would save you is not saving you, don't be afraid to move. Take a bold step, move. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Smart and compassionate women, they always make it. That's what I believe in.
Love it. This was so wonderful. Thank you so much for chatting with me and also for taking the time to speak to our audience today. Really valuable advice, as well as just really valuable in work that you're doing at your organization. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I didn't think I would be speaking on a podcast.
Well, here you are.
My first, I wanted to say it's my first podcast. Then I remembered that I once participated in a BBC one. Then, this is my second.
Oh, great. I'm glad I could be you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate. Thank you for considering me. I hope what I shared really resonates with a lot of women out there. Thank you.
Definitely. And to everybody else who's tuned in, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.